Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. So today is a really exciting day because I'm planting all of my Amaryllis for the 2020 Christmas season. You can see I have quite a number of them on the table in front of me. Now I ordered the bulk of these. I have 14 in total, and I ordered 12 of them from Van Engelen. Now this video is not sponsored, but I highly recommend them. And these are all Christmas flowering Amaryllis, which means that they bloom in about 4 to 6 weeks after you plant them. Some of the other varieties take 8 to 10 weeks, so if you want your Amaryllis in bloom by Christmas time, you want to make sure to find Christmas flowering ones, and it'll say when you buy them whether they are Christmas flowering or not. And if you get ones that are not, it is not an issue. You can still plant them at the same time. They will just take, like I said, much longer to bloom. About 8 to 10 weeks is usually what I tell people. Now, we are at the very tail end of October now, and so as long as you get them planted by kind of mid-November, you are relatively assured to have blooms by Christmas time. In 4 to 6 weeks, it will be end of November, beginning of December, so that's when I'm expecting these to come into bloom. Now, I have 4 or 5 different varieties here, so they shouldn't all be in bloom at the same time, which in my opinion is a good thing. But if you are looking to have them in bloom all at the same time, you would probably only want to get one variety. Now, for varieties, I have 3 of one called Merry Christmas. This is just kind of the classic solid red one. I have one called Black Pearl. This is a really deep red, and these 2 single ones, these are the ones that I got from my local garden center, not Van Engelen, but you can kind of get them anywhere you can find them. Anyway, this variety is Blushing Bride. Then I have 3 of one called Snow White, which is a double white. 3 of one called Cocktail, which is a red and white striped. And then 3 of a miniature variety called Lemon Sorbet, and this is actually a very pale green one. And then, besides the physical Amaryllis bulbs, you can see I have a whole bunch of supplies here, the bulk of which are containers. Now, the general rule of thumb when you're planting Amaryllis is to plant them in relatively small containers. You want to find ones that are about 2 inches larger than the bulb, so that gives the bulb about an inch of breathing room on every side. Amaryllis don't like to be in super large containers, but then on the flip side, they also don't want to be in super tiny ones. So as long as you kind of hit it in the middle, they should be super happy. If you want to plant more than one in one container, you will obviously need a bigger container, but you want to find one where you can give each bulb about an inch of room in between each other. And then the other thing that I wanted to mention is that I have one container here that doesn't have any drainage in it. So what I've done is I took and lined it with some black plastic, and then I placed some stones in the bottom, and then filled it up with soil from there. These stones are there in case there's any extra moisture, that it gives the water a place to go. And then the black plastic is there to protect the container from any moisture. And after these ones come up and are growing, I will just be very, very careful with the watering. So, to plant them, you don't want to plant the entire bulb, or cover the entire bulb with soil, I should say. Instead, you only want to cover the bottom third to 2/3. You can leave anywhere from 1/3 of the bulb to 2/3 of the bulb up above the soil line. So I'm going to take and plant this Black Pearl in this black container. I already got started by filling it up with some soil in the bottom, and I'm just using a regular all-purpose potting mix. And then I'm going to take and fill it up with soil around the bulb to help keep it in place. So you can see I'm centering the bulb in the container. I'm going to pull it up a little bit. And then I'm going to I have some preserved sheet moss, and then I'm just going to take and line the top of the soil with this. This step is totally unnecessary. I like to do it just to dress up the containers a little bit, but it is not necessary whatsoever. It does make them look a little bit nicer though as decor. You can also use, I have some decorative stone here. I will use that on some of the containers. Oh, I'll have to fuss around with this moss to get it to look right later. And then in this smaller container, the one that doesn't have any drainage, I'm going to plant this one with 2 of the lemon sorbet. That's the miniature variety. I also got this container ready by filling it up with some soil. You can see I've left quite a bit of lip on the black plastic. I did that intentionally to protect the container. Once I'm done planting them, I will take and fold that over and then cover it with some moss so you can't see it. And I'm doing my best to make sure that I don't get any soil in between the plastic and the container. If I do, though, it isn't the end of the world. When I take this apart in a couple months, then I can clean it out, give the container a good wash then. And you can probably tell that there is not an inch between these 2 bulbs. This container is a little bit tight, but I'm not going to be leaving these bulbs in this container throughout the entire growing season. Once they are finished blooming, I will take them out and pot them in their individual containers. So I'm kind of breaking my own rules in terms of pot size here, but because I'm erring on the smaller side instead of the bigger side, it should be totally fine. So now I got those backfilled with soil, so I'll just take and fold the plastic over and then line the top with some moss. I'll have to go back and fuss with that one too. And whenever I water it, I will pull the moss off and then peel back the plastic and water just the soil with just enough to moisten it, and then I will put it all back together. It is a little bit of a pain, but I really like this container and wanted to plant these bulbs in it, so I'm willing to put up with it. But that is definitely an extra step. If you don't want to go through that, then I would just get a container that has drainage like the rest of these. But anyway, I'm going to plant the rest of these, and then I will come back and tell you how I'm going to care for them throughout the rest of the Christmas season, and then throughout the growing season as a whole. Okay, so I'm very quickly losing light, but I got all 14 of the bulbs planted up, and all 14 of them top-dressed with either rocks or the moss. You can probably tell I prefer the moss as opposed to the rocks, because that's what I used on the bulk of the containers. So now at this point, what I'm going to do is take all of these inside, and I will probably spend some time cleaning up the pots, wiping up any extra soil, making sure that the moss is adjusted so that it looks as good as it possibly can. And then I will water them all in today, and then I will find a bright location inside to place all of them, and then I'm not going to water them again until I see some growth. You can see that some of the bulbs have already, like this one, have already started to grow, but I am going to wait until I see some more growth beyond this before I water them again. Amaryllis are really sensitive to rotting, so I'm going to be careful to not overwater these. Once they start to grow, I will add them to my regular houseplant watering schedule, so they'll get watered about once a week. And then when I do water them, I will be really careful to not get any water into the crown of the plant. That's where or the crown of the bulb, I guess I should say. That's where all of the leaves and the flower blooms come out of the bulb. And you don't want to get water down in there, or else the bulb will be very, very likely to rot. And then once these come into full bloom, then you can go ahead and move them out of the bright sun, or the bright light indoors. Then that will help prolong the bloom a little bit, or else they'll only be in bloom for a few weeks or so. But other than the watering issues, amaryllis are really easy to take care of. Make sure you subscribe down below so that you can see when these all come into bloom. It should be quite the show this year. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.